everyone, it's Sevy. Welcome to my guide on how to beat floor 11 and 12 of the 5.0 Abyss cycle. This time we're getting a bunch of new Natlan enemies, including some local legends and bosses. As usual, this video discusses strategies and tips to help you beat the chambers more easily. I'll just flash some very general reminders before you tackle Spiral Abyss, which you can pause to take a quick read. This Abyss Blessing gives 40% normal attack and skill damage
Have you ever had a moment where you thought, I don't feel like myself? And has that ever been followed by, I haven't felt like myself in a while? That thought crept up to me, making itself known little by little until I couldn't ignore it any longer. And once I acknowledged it, there was no going back. How did we get here? 2 reasons. The first is a topic I've brought up many times. Burnout. I've always had a passion for creation. Music, theater, writing, art, makeup, and eventually video. So when Sevy plays to cough, it felt like winning the lottery. But burnout is a wicked thing. It became the growing monster in the back of my head that, bit by bit, peeled away the joy of creating. I've talked about it a lot last year, especially because its intensity was at an all-time high. And it was a huge reason why I needed to take time offline and off content creation. The second reason, however, is one that I've always been private about. I was never in this alone. When Genshin Impact came out, my boyfriend was the one who invited me to try it. All it took was one look at Zhongli and I was sold. But more importantly, he's the one who suggested that I try streaming and making YouTube videos. With his push, I did, and Sevy Plays came to life. At this point, we had already been in a relationship for 3 years. Then we spent the next 3 years as romantic partners and co-workers. I often referred to him as my editor since that was his main contribution to the channel, but he did more than that. He worked with me on the scripts and game footage, handled tech and security issues, etc. And he also pushed me to become a better gamer and content creator. Together, we played out this new dream of online success in the gaming space through helping players with builds and Spiral Abyss. He worked with me on the channel from the start, but when Sevy Plays started rapidly growing, he decided that he wanted to remain behind the scenes. I respected that and saw the benefits to keeping that part of our lives private. So, in recent years, you'd rarely hear me mention a boyfriend or romantic partner. Things weren't perfect, but for a while, it worked. Until it didn't. And so, like many things, our partnership came to an end. Both in work and in life. Now, it's just me. When I announced that I'd be taking a break from content, it wasn't because I had decided right then and there that I was going to go on a vacation. It was because I couldn't, at that moment, physically continue working. So, I did the first thing people do in movies after a devastating breakup. I stayed with my parents for a bit. I feel incredibly lucky to say that when I needed them most, they gave me a home to rest in and made sure I was fed and sheltered for the first several days after my breakup. Even then, it sucked. The collaborative dynamic that had kept the channel running for 3.5 years had fallen apart. My mental health and self-esteem were in shambles, and I was alone for the first time in so fucking long. Being alone meant deafening silence. It meant reckoning with my own thoughts, fears, and doubts. It meant I had no choice but to face an incredibly hard truth. The last 3 years of my life, despite being the most momentous and gratifying for the career start it gave me, also became the years that I lost touch with myself. Constantly trying to please the YouTube algorithm, as well as trying to mold myself to another person in unhealthy ways, turned me into someone that I didn't recognize. The thoughts finally surfaced. I don't feel like myself. I haven't felt like myself for a while. And then, I want to feel like myself again. So, I spent the last 5 months working towards that goal. A lot happened in those 5 months. I reconnected with old friends. I went out a lot, more than I had in the past 4 years. I started going to therapy. Eventually, I started going on dates. But here's perhaps the biggest one. I moved into my own place. It's my first time living alone. No parents, no roommates, no significant others. Well, I have my bunnies, Luna and Theo. They keep me company. But as freeing as it is to have your own space, it's also a huge challenge becoming completely responsible for taking care of yourself. I didn't like being by myself at first. I couldn't take it. I asked friends to accompany me to most things. Groceries, furniture shopping, lunch, dinner, nights out, you name it. And bless their hearts, they kept me company. They collectively held my hand and showed me that life after a breakup might not be too lonely. They helped me assemble the basics of my new space. My kitchen table, my curtains, and even my PC setup, even if I didn't use it for 6 weeks straight. My friends did me an incredible favor being around me so much. But once the dust cloud of the initial move-in had settled, I knew I couldn't have my hand held for much longer. It was time to face the music of being alone. At first, I found peace in it. Slowly, I built my routine, my pace, my schedule, my days. I found that the mornings were my quiet time. Before I had to get the day started to run errands or do chores, and I learned to manage those by myself too, and even enjoy the process. But life continued happening. Progress definitely wasn't linear. The weight of the past months, the what and who that had gone from my life, suddenly started getting heavier. It was like grief was sinking in. I tried to deal with it by throwing myself back into work via streaming. I enjoyed it, especially because I chose to stream whatever I felt like streaming on the day. But it just wasn't the right time yet, and I just ended up stressed and overwhelmed by taking on more responsibilities before I was ready for it. I had moments of frustration, seething anger, petulance even, at the state I was in, at what I was going through. I found myself doing things purely for distraction, like doom scrolling or swiping on dating apps, which, in all honesty, also felt like doom scrolling. There was one morning where it felt like everything was falling apart, and I had no one there to comfort me. The frustration and anger had simmered down and cooled into a slow, unbearable sadness that clogged my chest and made my heart feel twice as heavy. All I could do was let it pass. Eventually it did. Whether it was time, people, self-reflection, therapy, or all of the above, I one day felt like I could finally breathe again. And little by little, things started falling back into place. I decided it was time to give myself the vacation I so sorely needed when I started my hiatus, but hadn't actually been able to take because of everything going on behind the scenes. So, that's what I did in February. And slowly, steadily, I felt a version of me emerge that I hadn't encountered in a long time. One that was happy, eager, and ready to start fresh, even at the risk of losing it all. Now here comes the big question. Maybe the one you've been waiting for me to answer throughout this entire video. What's next for Sevy Plays? Well, I never wanted to become a guide channel in the first place, and I most certainly don't regret becoming one for 3 years. But as long as it's been, as much as I've tried, it's just not where my heart is. And it's kind of part of what got me in this state in the first place. So number one, no more guides. I know that this may come as a shock to many of you, with perhaps a variety of reactions alongside that. And I will completely understand if that's enough to make you unsubscribe. After all, my guides are probably what you signed up for here anyway. As convenient as it would be if I could continue making gaming guides while exploring the new stuff, I would just end up half-assing both, and that's just not going to turn out well. That doesn't mean I'll stop playing games though. I mean, I still enjoy games and I still enjoy discovering and playing them, just on my own terms. Not to help others optimize game content, but simply to fall in love with the games that I decide to give my time to. So, if not gaming guides, what then? Well, I could give you my whole pitch for my vision of the next year of content, but what's the fun in that? I just want to tell stories, do life, and share that with you. We'll see what they'll look like as I go along. What matters is falling in love with creating content again. And for sure, that's a process of trial, error, and growth. I'm not going to be specific yet about what exactly I have planned for the coming year because I just want to let it unfold. But let me be extremely clear. This channel will be entering a new era, and I want it to feel like freedom. Change is scary, especially when it comes with a lot of risk. I know that by changing content, I risk losing a lot of you. And if you're one of those people, then I just want to say thank you for supporting the guide era of Sevy Plays. It was an honor helping you learn how to play your favorite characters. If, however, you're curious enough to stick around, you have no idea how much that means to me. We have a long, unpredictable, exciting road ahead. It's a vastly different road from the one I've been walking on for the past 4 years, but I hope we can continue journeying on together. The past 5 months have had some of the worst and best moments of my life so far. I still have a lot of healing to do, but I've reached a point where I feel ready to close the chapter of Sevy Plays and open the chapter of Sevy. I'm more myself than I ever have, and I'm excited to keep growing into this version of me. In fact, this might actually be the first time you're meeting the true me. So, let's start over. Hey everyone, it's Sevy.